been rightly called the sinews of peace and the backbone of war. Behind the guns and tanks and ships and planes are the blast furnaces and open hearths, the electric furnaces and blooming mills. Tending these giant furnaces have always stood a breed of men apart, giants in the land, those men of steel. But with our country in peril, the women of America rallied to the support of their men. And here in this almost the last great industry we thought could be handled only by men, these mothers, wives, and sweethearts came to stand shoulder to shoulder with them in almost every capacity. These marvelous women of America, these women of steel. Of course, we had long since accepted their aptitude in fabrication, the swift, sure dexterity of their fingers, as in this stainless steel rib assembly, their adaptability to small tools, even the hand-welding electrodes. But as the need grew for more and more production of the basic metal itself, more loyal women with a dash of true American pluck and venturesomeness edged further and further into the real work of steelmaking. Some with a scientific bent went into metallurgical control and research labs. Girls fresh from chemical engineering schools, older women who had been technical librarians. Out of the Met Lab, trained observers keep a watchful eye on the various operations. Emmylou Spillane, a college girl, now makes pin tests of the steel as it comes from the furnaces.
Isn't this pretty hot for you, Miss Spillane?
Well, I hear it gets kind of hot around the kitchen stove, too.
I never thought of that.
Yes, and it gets pretty hot out there in the South Pacific.
I see what you mean.
Tab girls were needed at the soaking pit, so Judy Magella replaced a man at the scale board. Alongside of the world's largest hot strip mill turning out steel plate for ships, the labor gang is now made up of women. Here is Mrs. Varconi from Hungary, a great-grandmother. And the work isn't too hard for you?
No, I used to work in a butcher shop. I like this better. It's more excitement.
It is that, all right. Yes, women make good inspectors. Here is one applying the Magnaflux test to steel for airplane motors. They make good drivers, too. American girls raised to drive the family car find it no trick at all to handle trucks and tractors. Edith Stoner's husband is in Alaska. She took this job for the duration.
How do you like your job, Mrs. Stoner?
I love it.
How about after the war? Are you going to keep on working?
I should say not. When my husband comes back, I'm going to be busy at home.
Good for you.
They operate cranes, too. This is Edith's sister, Betty Martin. No job seems too difficult for them to tackle or too intricate. Mrs. Warner, at these crane controls, must lift this huge bloom into the furnace to be heated red hot, then carried across the shop to the forging press. It takes good judgment and a steady hand to manipulate it under the drop hammer, just the right amount and position each time. And Miss Evans here is very adept at this. Here, at the straight edge and pony platform, we find another kind of operator. Mary Dubash comes from a long line of steel workers. Her father, her uncle, and her grandfather before. So it was natural for her to come here and get into war work. And speaking of generations in the steel business, Fred Kaler was rightfully proud of his son following him in the machine shop. Then the war took the boy. Fred felt pretty badly about that, till his daughter Hetty said, "Let me take his place for the duration." And here she is, working side by side with her dad. Here is the office of the supervisor of women employees. She can tell us more about them. If you will, Miss Campbell.
Women in steel are simply the result of realistic thinking. In time of war, you have to have steel. Well, you also have to have people to make it. With the Army taking men by the thousands, more than 16,000 from our plant so far, we had to find people to replace them. A great untapped reserve was women.
How many do you have?
About half of the replacements are women, more than 8,000 of them. The rest are older men and young boys.
And the women, are they doing all right?
Beyond anything anyone ever dreamed of. They're doing something in almost every department in the plant. And I don't mean just clerks and checkers. We have women engineers and oilers in the boiler room. Women repair experts. Women work at the ore mines, above ground, along the unloading docks, and our private railroad tracks. Women carpenters. And women shipbuilders. And women load and unload our freight cars. We have girls in charge of our tool cribs, and that takes the knowing of a lot of tools to do that. Many of our girls have never worked before, outside their own homes. I've seen the share the ride cars picking them up. We have the wives of college professors, club women, home girls who are doing it as their patriotic duty. And they all average more than 10% in war bonds. Of course, we've made the plants attractive for them. The women have their own lockers and wash-up rooms. They come out from work looking like business girls on vacation, really. These girls are thimblers on the tank tread line. One had her own beauty parlor, the other was formerly a cigarette girl in a nightclub. Some of them are like Mrs. Verneda Talon, who used to run a radio and music store. And Lee Dunning, who now welds on landing barges. Lee, what did you used to do?
Believe it or not, I was a baby nurse.
Well, quite a change to this.
Yeah, but the hours are much shorter.
What do you do with your spare time now?
Recently, I've been interested in the Red Cross Blood Bank. I'm signed up for my 5th contribution.
And what about after this war, Lee?
Well, this job belongs to some soldier, and when he comes back, he can have it.
Oh, that's swell. And Rosita Moser, who clerked in one of the country's finest department stores. Now she's in our reclaiming department.
Isn't this a funny place for you?
Not if it helps win the war.
But after clerking in a fashionable store,
I like it here, and it saves my clothes.
yes, I suppose it would.
Did you ever try pleasing a bunch of women shoppers all day?
No, I never did.
Well, here I just have to please the boss, and he's a man.
And that gives you an idea of the spirit here. These women are working around the clock, around the calendar. They do a man's job, and they can draw a man's pay. And they're doing it safely. They're safer here than in their own homes.
All America salutes its women of steel.